Okay, at this time I'd like to turn it over to Supervisor Doe.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the speakers for coming and sharing with us their view of the project and what they know so far and their feelings. If there's one thing that should be abundantly clear for the last 4.5 years since I started sitting up here on the dais, that is, I am very protective of Santa Ana. For a long time, I have felt that Santa Ana, being the seat of county government, has borne the brunt of the responsibilities and the burden of county services, especially the homeless. I started working as a legal clerk in a courthouse. Back then, it was a department of the county across the street over here near City Hall. And even then, in '87, it was overrun with the homeless. The problem got worse later in the decade, into the '90s, where it was taken over almost entirely by tents. It became a tent city. And then that trend ebbed and flowed for the ensuing 3 decades, until I became a supervisor. And I believe that the impact on the people of Santa Ana was too great. It was not an acceptable condition for our children to be exposed to the unsanitary conditions, unsafe conditions, both on the street, in the parks, but also in the public library, which is just right here on Ross. I have begged the Santa Ana City Council for years now to give me assistance, to collect evidence, to show that there is dumping going on. Arm me with information. I will be your bully pulpit. I will go out there and I will shame any jurisdiction that dumps on Santa Ana, on my district. In the 4.5 years, have I received one bit of evidence, one bit of information, both now in private conversations and also in court. I have pleaded in court to say that I will stand up and I will fight for Santa Ana. But I will not let the public be misled. I will not let politics prevail over what's right for the public. Let's go back to the history of the interaction between the county and the city. In 2014, the city voted for Normandy Place in Santa Ana off of Grand. It's an SB2 zone. That is a homeless shelter, qualified zone, picked by the city. The site was also selected by the city. The county went through the negotiation process, went through the due diligence process for months in anticipation of buying the property in order to open up a homeless shelter at the suggestion of the city in a zone that they authorized. And then at the 12th hour, change of heart. County, you are the bad, evil entity. You're dumping on the city. Pull back. The county could not proceed. And then what was the suggestion from the city council at that time? Go to the OCTA bus terminal. The bus terminal wasn't owned by the county. Understand that. At that time, it was owned by OCTA, purchased through a grant from the Federal Transportation Authority. That means the use of that money, if OCTA was to sell it to the county, has to be used for transportation, for transit purposes. So it's a three-way dance that we had to do between the federal government, OCTA, and the county to purchase that property before we can even do what the city suggested. But we did do that. We went through a year of pushing and prodding, and we got the property. And we opened it up as a temporary homeless shelter at whose suggestion? The city's. Okay? And then after we opened it up, I have met with every single council member of Santa Ana, and I mean every single one of them, past and present. And what is the one universal comment they made to me, and one request that they made consistently to all of them? Move the courtyard. Okay? Every single one of them. Even the ones that are running against me now. Even the ones that are endorsing people to run against me. I listened to them. And then they came to us, to the county. On their own, the city of Santa Ana. They picked a Central Street site. This is the site, SB2 zone. We authorize you, go ahead without blessing. Having been burned a couple of times, what do you think I did? No. Put everything in writing. And that's why the MOU came up. And what did they do? They withdrew from Central Street. And then a few months later, they came to us with what? The Yale Street site. And this time, okay, having been burned twice now, the third time, I said, okay, I want a full financial commitment from the city. And that's what we got. We got promise from the city as to a lump sum contribution to the purchase price and an ongoing contribution to operational cost. I felt like I would, okay, now, Ms. Mills, you're talking about trust? Okay, now I feel like I can trust the process, right? It's been reduced down to writing, full commitment, financial commitment, signed by the city manager. And then what did we hear? Oh, no, before it happened further, we went to court. The Mayor Polito, different council members, stood up there before Judge Carter and said, we will work with the county. Why? Is it because of the kindness of their heart or because of this trust issue? No, because the city of Santa Ana needs capacity. They need to have homeless shelter beds in order to enforce the anti-camping law, in order to be part of the settlement in court, which you are not part of the settlement yet. And that's why the city recently in the settlement stepped up and promised to build an additional 250 shelter beds in addition to the courtyard and in addition to the armory. I want you to know that. Your own city promised 250 more beds in your own city. Okay? Not just the courtyard bed, but in addition to that. So the idea that somehow if we move the courtyard, that we are dumping on Santa Ana, that is a fiction. That is a fiction created for political purposes, for politicians with no platform, no solution. So what do? They obstruct. And they find me a convenient target. Okay? So let's go back now. And I'm going to address issues that have been raised. Can we put up the first map of the courtyard right now? And I want the public to see when comments were made earlier that we go out on a 2-mile radius. I'm sorry, with any city, you go out 2 miles on a radius, I mean, you're including a big part of your own city. So is that really a good measure of impact? No, I would say half a mile. And what do we have? Okay. So what you have there, and I'm going to summarize it for you. At the courtyard location right now, within half a mile, you have 7 schools. You have 3 daycare centers. You have 9 churches, 2 public libraries, and 3 community centers. Within half a mile. So the courtyard, remember, it was open at the suggestion of the Santa Ana City Council, and it is not ADA compliant because it was always meant to be a temporary shelter, and it's just a matter of time before we get sued. And so we need a facility that really can serve our homeless residents, a place that will provide the appropriate level of service. And public protection. Unlike the courtyard, Yale Street is a lockdown facility. Somebody mentioned earlier that Kramer, they cited Kramer Lane in Anaheim as the model. And it is a model, because when you go there, you can't tell where it is. You can't really tell where the shelter is because it's that well run. Well, the Yale Street will be run in that way. Our operational plan that was submitted to you say that. Okay? There is no walk in and out or walk up service. You have to be referred into Yale Street by either the health worker or the Santa Ana PD. Those two only. And why did I fight for those? Because I wanted the city to be able to know who is going in and out of the shelter. That's the protection I give you. And our operational plan also requires what? That both the county and the operator will ensure that there's no loitering, no trashing, no trash, no encampments within half a mile that radius of the shelter. We put that in the operational plan. And there will be regular patrol 24/7 within that half a mile radius to protect residents and businesses. And this area is in the middle of an industrial zone. Despite that fact, guess what? The Yale Street site is also SB2 zone by the city. This is a site that was selected by the city, zoned by the city, and suggested to the county to purchase to be a homeless shelter. And so we are acting really at the suggestion of the city and the leadership of the city, and we are doing everything we can in order to protect the neighborhood and the residents of Santa Ana. Outreach. I find the comment about outreach really kind of befuddling. I have been doing, for those of you who follow me at all, 50 community coffees within the last 3-4 months. We held a coffee maybe 2 or 3 months ago with 5 different neighborhood associations at one time at a school nearby. And we talked about this. Every coffee I talk about this. I never ran away from the Yale Street issue. So the idea that somehow the one big outreach was the only thing, the opportunity that the community could be heard is completely false. In terms of impact to the city, what we are doing is we will have the Yale Street site qualified as a FQHC, which is Federally Qualified Health Care Center. The reason the paramedics have to be called and the fire department who go together, they always respond together, a call to the courtyard is because it's a converted bus terminal, so it is not equipped to be to administer any kind of medical procedure. So even if someone just get a simple cut, right, and they just need nothing more than just some cream and some bandage, the staff over there are not equipped or licensed or allowed by law to provide that treatment. They have to go to an FQHC. So in order to save costs and not impact the city so much, we will put the FQHC, the Federally Qualified Healthcare Center, in Yale Street. So then that will reduce significantly the need to call the paramedics or the fire department. And like I said, Yale Street is not a walk-up facility. So therefore, there is no people riding their bikes up or just walking up and hanging out or knocked on the gate and say, hey, I want to get in. No, it doesn't work that way. They will not be admitted. And so there will not be that kind of loitering that will impact the neighborhood around there. And so, and also meals. Meals will not be allowed to be served to anyone other than the residents who are in the lockdown facility. So there is no situation like we have over here where people just walk up and then leave and hang out nearby until mealtime to go back to the courtyard to get food. There was a speaker earlier that mentioned that just almost literally across the street, the Goodwill operates at least 2 facilities that I know of that serves a population very similar to this, to the homeless population that we are talking about here at the Yale Street site. And so that area is not impacted by that population. We know that. It's been in operation for years. In fact, when you drive by down the Yale Street, you will know that they're there. I've driven that street many times. So the bottom line here is we have been doing things at the suggestion of the city led by the city council, represented to the court as part of our settlement that we will build a shelter in order to be ADA compliant so that we can move the courtyard. This is all part of a legal process. This is not just something we came up with out of the blue. And in that process, and Council Member Iglesias, I am glad that you modify your comment now to reflect the right number of beds, which is 425. For a long time, you kept saying 600. And I want to say the number 600 existed from the city, because back then the city wanted to have the extra capacity for itself. So they would try to piggyback on our project. That's how the number 600 came up. From our side, it was always 425, because that's what we wanted to do, is to move the courtyard. Okay? And so I hope this answers a lot of the concerns that have been raised. There is one more map that I would like staff to put up. So remember all the things that I listed that are within half a mile of the courtyard now. Now compare to this. This is the same half a mile from the Yale Street new shelter, the proposed shelter. Okay, you see the two schools. The Godinez High School is only one part of the school touches the outside border, half a mile border of the zone that we're talking about. But very critical to your analysis should be this. When you look at Yale Street, there's a street that goes up in north-south. There is no way to go straight across, because you have to cross to all the constructions, all the buildings. You have to go up and then over. So by the time you add up, it is almost a mile. That's like a mile walk to get to the edge of the zone that we're talking about. It is not like as the crow flies, as they say. People don't walk that way. They can't. They have to go actually onto streets. And so that distance is at least 3/4 of a mile. So it is not like down the street distance. And so when you look at this, the impact and the operational plan that we have put together, where it's a closed system, lockdown facility, and the residents can only be referred in there through the county and the city of Santa Ana. There is no feeding to people who are not residents at the center, with elevated patrol and enforcement for the entire half a mile zone. I believe that this adequately addresses the concerns that community has expressed so far, and that a lot of your concerns are probably fomented because of the incomplete information that you've been given. So colleagues, I'm open for questions. If you have any.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start with Supervisor Chafee.
Oh, yes, I'd just like to state a little bit of different set of facts. Other cities are doing their share. I'm not referring to the south. I'm referring to the north. The North Spa has come together, has settled its litigation, and the cities there are opening two new, we don't call them shelters, we call them navigation centers. And that is partially funded by the county, but each city is in charge of the operations that has that shelter. And most of the money is coming from the cities who work together collectively to bring this about. I see an issue here with the Central Spa, which Santa Ana is the hub of it, as the other cities in that Central Spa not joining together and doing what is possible. An issue, I know some description of some of the past has come here. We talked about Kramer Place. That started as a partnership between Anaheim and Fullerton. It is now a county shelter. Both those cities put up a substantial sum of money to start it, as did other cities in the area to keep it going. So to say that the county is not doing its share, it is helpful in those areas a lot. Fullerton, for example, this is its 29th year in which it has had its armory open as a cold weather shelter, the 230-bed facility. What is sometimes not realized that the city has had to step up on short notice when that armory was closed because the National Guard wanted to use the facility, as was its right, for exercises. City had to scramble, finding sometimes other gymnasiums and other facilities to accommodate that. And so then when we talk about policing, you call in Fullerton and my other 5 cities in the North Spa that I have, they all have their own police departments. You call them. You don't call the county or the sheriff because they are not there. It's not their jurisdiction. In Santa Ana, the jurisdiction rests with its police department, and that's their responsibility to do that. I might also mention with Kramer Place a kind of a coincidental thing. The person I worked with in Anaheim was Christine Ridge, the current city manager of Santa Ana. She at the time was the assistant or deputy city manager in Anaheim. Did a great job. I really enjoyed working with her. I wish there were better communication going on there. I have to point out that some of the population is because of the point-in-time count. People here that we're trying to take care of in Santa Ana are largely, believe it or not, residents here. That's true of the north. We have a large homeless population there, and we try to respond as a group, working together, to provide meaningful opportunities for them to have shelter and also to navigate beyond that. And in addition to that, Fullerton on its own has started a recuperative center, and the building is large enough to add an additional navigation center for homeless people as well. And yes, we hope to find funding in a lot of different places. You shake the tree when you can. But cities need to step up to the plate too, and I wish the central spa cities are doing that. The South, yeah, I see that. They want to litigate rather than do what I think is more the right thing, to just step up and open some shelters, get it done, and share the load. There are other things that are going on. I know that it's sometimes difficult when we release somebody from jail. We're trying to do what we call an integrated services vision, where in time we're going to hand those people off, not just put them on the street, but to other providers so that they're not loose, and to release them at a timely way so it's not as nighttime or something, but where other facilities are open and we can continue to try to alleviate that as best we can. That is something that we're working on, and will take some time to complete. So I feel that pain when they are released here, because that's where they happen to have been incarcerated. So I do support this, and it's intended really to replace the courtyard. It does not really create more shelter than is already here. It gives it a better quality with more security, better services, and hopefully we can get more of those people back on the street if we give them better service, and work on that. As the courtyard is it just doesn't work. It came about because of litigation pressure, and it's time we replace that, and I think this is a remarkable step forward. And I hope cities can work more together, and I know the county stands ready to help out if it can. But not just one city. It has to be a group of cities coming together to do this right. And with that, I'm supportive of this item.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Chafee. So this item specifically approves the cooperation and implementation agreement and ground lease with shelter providers or homemade. And while I applaud Supervisor Doe's efforts, there is language specific to the ASR indicating that the shelter would serve the homeless population exclusively in the central region, and that this would come back to the board under approval for the operational plan. And while I'm supportive of today's action, which pertains specifically to the lease and the innovative way in which this was developed, I have to state that I would not be supportive of a 100% county-funded shelter that only serves one specific region. I do want to commend Supervisor Doe for his leadership in establishing this critical county resource, but I believe that it should be accessible to the homeless on an availability and an appointment basis in the county, regardless of the place of origin. The county funds used towards capital and operational costs were paid for by all of the taxpayers of Orange County. So therefore, I would not support a plan that refuses to provide resources to some of the most vulnerable people in our community simply because they're coming from a different part of the area outside of the central planning area. And so for that reason, I won't be able to support this item today, but hopefully when it does come back as an operational plan in the not-too-distant future, we could perhaps make an accommodation for, upon availability and on an appointment basis, to be able to open it up to individuals that are homeless outside of the central planning area. Thank you. Supervisor Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate the perspective you come from in terms of using county general funds. But here is my commitment to the city of Santa Ana, that I will not change the language restricting the use of the Yale Street site only for the central spa. This board created the regional concept, the 3 spas, the service planning areas, for a reason, and we need to respect it to prevent exactly the kind of dumping issue that has been raised so far. I would like to, I haven't made a motion, so let me move the item now with 2 additional directives, because I want to make this also very clear, that the CEO is to develop a transition plan that will lead to the ultimate permanent closure of the courtyard as a homeless shelter. That will clearly express our commitment that the Yale Street site will only replace the capacity we have at the courtyard and not additional capacity in the city of Santa Ana. And also that at the same time, when you come back on January 28, 2020 at the Board of Supervisors meeting, that you submit a plan for an RFP for the operator of the Yale Street site. Okay? So that would be my motion.
Okay, and I believe Supervisor Chafee wanted to second? Or do you have comments or questions?
No, I understand the operational plan will come later, and the concerns will be there. The only comment I have is that this is a county facility versus those in my North Spa that are basically run by the cities with county facility assistance and funding in some cases. But no, I do support this, and so I'm going to second the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any objection? Okay, I'll have to vote no on this. All right, that does pass 4-1. And I want to thank all the speakers for coming today.